issue that is related in some way or the other to the questions that we have already touched with you. I mean, some translation quality assessment norms and the Scopus theory, of course. So as for the checking of your works, so I'm in the process of it. So in fact, I had very many classes with other groups of students the previous week. Yes, that is why I didn't have much time for this. But of course, as I have some time now, during the week, I will be able to check all the scopers, all the scopus issues that you sent me. And of course, the materials in the system by Bashkir State University, so everything will be checked. So that is why do not worry about it. So, and speaking about yes, our topic for today. So as for the other people, we are waiting, yes, for them to join, like Roma, Dasha, Delina, yes. So maybe. So, all in all, let us start just for us to be in time. Yes, as usual, the lecture is for about an hour or so. So it depends on the speed of my speech, so to say, and or of course it is required for you to put the lecture down, judging by the presentation that I sent you, and of course the materials that I'm going to deliver to you as well. So as you see from the presentation, today we have to discuss several issues that are connected with pragmatics of translation. And of course, we have to make some preliminary notes, some introductory notes, and of course, the definition of the notion as a branch of science. So first of all, words in a language, yes, are related to certain reference which they denote, and of course to other words of the same language with which they make up syntactic units. So, I guess that it is pretty understandable. Yes, we have a reference, some обозначаемое in Russian. Or they denote certain notions, and of course these words are related within a sentence with the help of syntactic rules. That is why we have syntax, morphology, yes, grammar, and such things. And of course, these relationships are called semantic, yes, if we are talking about the science, and syntactic, yes, when we are talking about syntax. I guess this is pretty understandable, yes. And to the usage of the language, the words are not just indifferent, unemotional labels of objects and ideas. Every unit has its emotional denotatum, so to say, yes, because people develop a certain attitude to the words they use. And some of the words require some definite implications, definite meanings. They may evoke a positive response or a negative response. And of course, they are associated with different things, with different theories, likes or dislikes even. For example, the adjective noble is connected with such words like dignity, honor, or freedom, and this is, of course, the so to say noble sphere of the vocabulary, right? Then we have some nice words or ugly words, attractive words, or something else. And such relationship between the word and its users, that is the way how we treat every single unit. So these relationships are called pragmatic. That is, pragmatics is so yes, I guess that you may see it in the presentation. Yes, pragmatics is the study of language, as it is used in a socio-cultural context, including its effect on the participants in the process of communication. That is, again, these are the things that I have told you already. Yes, this is the attitude of speakers, the effect on the participants in the process of communication. So, let me just turn off the sound. And when we are talking about this very notion like sociocultural, it means that it involves social and cultural factors, that is, factors that are related to society and to the culture of certain people. And of course, the translator must be aware of the situational aspects of language usage in order to produce culturally adequate translations. Yes. So, of course, there are numerous examples of pragmatics in speech. For instance, if we have the unit like in Russian, "осторожно, окрашено." Yes, if we translate it just word for word without any reference to pragmatics, it may be something like, be careful, it is painted. But of course, from the grammatical and lexical point of view, this is quite all right. So these are quite adequate sentences. But of course, the only problem here is pragmatics, and we should find the corresponding phrases that English-speaking society uses, and it will be something like wet paint. And if we translate vice versa, wet paint from English into Russian, again, it will be a misunderstanding. Yes, мокрая краска, something like that, свежая краска, and what if nothing else. The same holds true for such notices, and it is, yes, very common thing, I guess, when we have something like места для инвалидов. In the Russian tradition, we have so, and of course, if we again translate word for word, it will be politically incorrect. Yes, for Americans and for the British as well, because they don't treat this category of people like invalids. Yes, they don't say so. They say something like disabled, yes, or with disabilities, the English correspondence will be priority seating for persons with disabilities. Yes, just for them, as you know, I guess that the political correctness is forever. Yes, it should be observed in all cases. But in our society, we're at least trying to follow these rules, but it is not always happening. Then we have also such things when we deal with pragmatics, like the pragmatics of the original text cannot be, as a rule, directly reproduced in translation, and it often requires important changes in the transmitted sentence, or it is not only just notices, but simple sentences as well. And the correlated words in the two languages may produce or dissimilar, yes, a dissimilar effect upon the user. So something different, some different effect. When we have a thing like in English, we have the word ambition, and to be ambitious in the English language means so something very positive. Yes, when you are striving to achieve your goals, and more to it, or of course it may be neutral as well, yes, and sometimes even negative. But in the Russian language, ambiция, the corresponding word, is a negative word. So we are trying, so you see, in the course of time, we are trying to have something more connected with the word, but still it has some negation in it. All right, and of course the sentence are something like the boy's ambition was to become a pilot, in Russian should be rendered like «мечта мальчика». Да, мечтой мальчика было стать летчиком, да, или мальчик хотел стать летчиком. So it will be something very, very neutral. But мечта мальчика была стать летчиком. This is the correspondence that is recommended to use here. So you see, this is the question of pragmatics. Not only stylistics, but pragmatics as well, just for us to have the same impact upon the reader or receptor. What else just to be said here? Yes. So here I have spoken about separate words, and of course, when we consider a phrase or certain phrases in a text, the problem becomes more complicated. And of course, the communicative effect on a speech unit does not depend on the meaning of its components alone, yes, but of course it involves consideration of the whole situation, of the whole situational context. And of course, it stands to reason that the natives of some tropical island can hardly be impressed by the statement as white as snow. Yes, because it is rather unusual to them. And if you remember, we touched upon this question in our lectures, especially when we considered some norms, because you see these issues are interrelated. And yes, in such cases when the culture doesn't have the notion, so to say, of snow, we should have something like a pragmatic adaptation just to preserve the original communicative effect. And we should say here that the translation event, and here it is written in the presentation, a translation event is pragmatically oriented in two directions. On the one hand, it is a translation, when we mean it from the point of view of pragmatics and all other things. It is a translation, which means that its primary purpose is to give the closest possible approximation to the original text. So it should be as close to the text as possible. And this orientation towards a foreign text is one aspect of its pragmatic, but only one. But on the other hand, a translation event is, of course, a concrete speech act in a target language, this time in a target language, right? And therefore, it is not just an act of interlingual communication between source language and target language, not just this, but it is also an act of speech communication between the translator and the target text. You see, this is very important. We are not just transmitters of information and this is all. No, we are participating in the act of translation, and it should be also kept in mind. Of course, the target text is the result of the activities of a concrete translator. And of course, he or she may have some extra or some additional pragmatic motivation. It may pursue some aims, for instance, to persuade the reader of something. Yes, persuade that this, for instance, these measures for COVID-19 in the USA are not appropriate at all. Yes, and of course, the translator will render this very text in a very peculiar way. Yes, with the choice of certain words, constructions, and whatnot. And of course, this specific goal, which makes the translator modify the resulting text, because in this very case that I've described, this is just the modification of the original text. So it often means that for all practical purposes, he or she assumes an extra role, an additional role, and he's not and she's not just a translator. They may set themselves some educational task or propaganda, as I said, yes. They may be particularly interested in some part of the original, and they wanted to make a special emphasis on it. Yes, they may try to impact, as I said, upon the receptor and so on and so forth. And that is why we have certain norms in the English language, and we have these very things like translation quality assessment, because without them, our translations will be up to the will of the translator only, and no rules should be observed, apart from some more transformational rules, or so when we transform certain structures, but you see, we always have the choice, yes, either to transform the structure this way or that way. So, yeah, are you here? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that's good. Just for me to be too carried away. Yeah, that is why. So I'm asking. So, of course, that is why, as I said, yes, we have all the norms, and especially the pragmatic norms. So they require that a translator should realize, first and foremost, the pragmatic purpose of the text, why it is created. And of course, the translator should also understand the purpose intent, and it should be very close to the communicative effect upon on the translator's receptor. And of course, sometimes it is rather difficult. So, of course, we should bear in mind the following. Yes, we should, yes, keep in mind the following. So, each utterance that we deal with during the act of translation and during our speech as well, yes, each utterance is in a speech act is aimed at somebody. Yes, we aim our sentences, our words to somebody. And of course, combined together, words make up a syntactic scheme of a sentence, and they refer to specific events, persons, objects, and of course, it requires some sense. And we should keep in mind that there are two types of language sign users. So have a look in the presentation. We have the addresser or the author, we say this, and an addressee or receptor. And when speaking, an addressee has communicative intention. So the addresser has a communicative intention. That is why he wants, or the author wants to tell us something. And of course, he has or she has a purpose of the speech act. And an utterance that is produced thus has a communicative effect upon the receptor. It can inform the receptor of something, of course, some feelings and so on. And a communicative effect is sometimes virtual, like an advertising text may persuade a receptor to buy something, but the receptor may remain indifferent, yes, to the promotion of some toothpaste, for instance, yes. And of course, the potential effect of the utterance is its functional force. And in this respect, there was created the theory of speech acts. So you see, this is connected with communication, utterances, and these are the basic notions for pragmatics as well. So it happened, I mean, the appearance of the theory of speech acts. So it appeared in 1955 at Harvard University, where the British philosopher John Austin was to deliver some lectures, and he presented something that was to have an equally strong impact on a wide range of disciplines. And it was the new perspective that reshaped our view of language and the way it operates, and consequently our pragmatics has emerged as a discipline at that time, and a discipline on its own right. And here it studied the purposes for which sentences are used, and the real conditions under which a sentence may be used as an utterance. Yes, because when we see the sentence, it is not just an utterance, it is a sentence. But when we read it, yes, with appropriate intonation, or when we address it to someone, so of course it becomes an utterance, высказывание. Yes. So speech acts are those which we perform when we, for instance, make a complaint or request, when we apologize or pay some compliment. And pragmatic analysis of speech acts sees all utterances in terms of two functions, like stating and doing things, of having a force and a sense. That is why, or just how to explain it more clearly, or just I would say that each utterance, and you may see it in the presentation as well, each utterance has a sense, that is смысл, yes, a sense, or a reference to specific events, persons, and objects. It also has a force, which may override literal sense and relay added effects, such as those associated with a request, or it may be an imperative. Yes, just do it and no more. And the third side is an effect or consequence, which may and may not be of the kind associated with linguistic expression or the functional force involved. So consequently, so I guess that it may be clearer when I give the example. So for example, we have the phrase, the utterance, shut the door. When we say so, we strictly understand, so the addressee strictly understands that it is an imperative. Yes, we just say very strictly to do this, to shut the door. And of course, it is a force of request, right? Требуемое, это требование is a kind of this. And it could be used just simply to annoy the hearer. So это же у нас, безусловно же, не просьба, да, это никакой имеет формы просьбы или там вежливого пожелания и так далее. Это приказ. И, конечно же, приказ может вызвать разные чувства у человека. Это может быть и раздражение, да, или действительно нужно выполнять этот приказ. No more. And of course, these three aspects of message construction are given by John Austin. They are acquired three names, three labels, consequently and respectively, locution, illocution, and perlocution, like локуция, иллокуция и ферлокуция, they say in Russian. So, то есть локутивный акт у нас, то есть это сам оборот речи, иллокутивный акт, который обеспечивает успешность речевого контакта, и перлокутивный, собственно говоря, какую эмоцию мы хотим передать с помощью данной единицы, данной фразы. And of course, these three distinctions, these three labels, they have proven to be extremely important in translation and interpreting studies. And they should be borne in mind when we speak about translation. An adequate translation is the one whose communicative effect is close to that of the source text. I guess that you understand it pretty well, yes? And this very communicative effect is given in this very final stage, like perlocution, yes, because our main idea when we are deal with certain text, with certain utterance, is to have an effect upon the reader or listener. Yes, this is our aim. We want to have an impact on him or her, and consequently, we use specific language units. And in its turn, the translation is also dependent on this very notion of communicative effect. Yes, as I said, it should be close to that of the source text, of course, and at best, its communicative effect should coincide with the author's communicative intention. You see, if we want to say that the text should be informative, yes, it should be informative in translation as well. Yes, this is the principle that I told you about many times. So, and regarding this principle, Peter Newmark introduced two types of translation. It is a communicative translation and semantic translation. Communicative translation attempts to produce on its receptors an effect as close as possible to that produced on the readers of the original, right? And here we deal with the effect, yes, within the framework of communicative translation. And semantic translation attempts to render as closely as possible the semantic and syntactic structures of the language, the exact contextual meaning of the original, and so on and so forth. And when we are talking about examples, we may have the following. So, for instance, the English sentence, beware of a dog, should be rendered like осторожно, злая собака, within the communicative translation. And опасайтесь собаки within the semantic translation. So do you see the difference here, right? And of course, the communicative effect is retained in both of the translations, but of course, the first translation is more adequate, so to say, because it follows the rules of the target language and it deals with the same communicative situation Of course, we have these notices on the doors, on the fences of our country, and this is it. And of course, close to translation adequacy, we have the concept of translation acceptability. I guess that you also remember it about when we talked about the Israeli theorist and scholar Gideon Turi and his notion of norms. And within that approach, he spoke about translation acceptability. That is, where the translation is considered to be acceptable when the end product, the translation that we have, is accepted and admitted into the target system of the language. In other words, an acceptable translation is the text with language use in the natural situation. Of course, we should also, yes, just let me see. Yes, yeah, all in all, of course, translation should be adapted and adjusted to the target language culture, as I said, yes, and it should be as a result. We may have some free translation, literal translation, or a faithful imitation of the source text. Further. Further, we should speak about the following. You see, pragmatics is a multi-aspect approach, so to say, a multi-aspect field, yes, and it comprises many things. It comprises norms, as I said, and especially acceptability norms. It comprises communicative situation, yes, communicative intention uh, of the author, the addresser, yes, and the addressee, like the receptor of the text. It also comprises other things like the genre and style features. So let's somehow touch them. So as I already said earlier, so the communicative effect of the source and target text upon the receptor should be similar, and a lot depends on the functional style, genre, language, and speech norms, of course. And of course, they are all important from the point of view of pragmatics, as I said. So style or register, they influence our communicative situation greatly, because I said that if we declare love in a business-like manner, of course it won't be estimated in a very proper way, you see. And sometimes genre requirements of a text are very strict, and they cannot but be met in translation, and otherwise the target text may be spoiled even, yes, and it actually holds true when we translate patterns. We should observe all the elements of the structure of the pattern. We should stick to the translation of specific cliches, formulas, set phrases, and whatnot. Otherwise, it will be meaningless. And the same holds true for the usage over some grammatical phenomena like impersonal constructions, passive voice, indefinite structure, and so on and so forth. And if we have very many interjections and expressive means, this text will be considered as belonging to the scientific register, to the scientific style. Thus, of course, the translator should have a good command, not only of the target language, but also of the style and genre requirements, and different style and genre features of the two languages. And sometimes the translator faces the contradiction between a text form and its function. And in this case, the function predominates, and the example should be something like the sentence, how do you do? You see, this is the interrogative sentence, and it is formal greeting in the English language, but in the Russian, we have only здравствуйте. Here we preserve the function. That is why we often forget about this phrase in visual communication, because we are not accustomed to using pragmatics. Yes, but we should. And we also have to distinguish between the functions of the source text and those of the translated text as well. And the reason for initiating a translation are independent of the reasons for creation a particular text, and consequently we are getting down to the Scopus theory. I guess that you pretty well remember it. Yes, originated in Germany in 1970s and so on and so forth. And here, as we discussed with you, the client's needs determine the scopus of the target text, and depending on the scopus, a translation may be full or may be partial or restricted, and this is important. Once again, the translation can be full or partial depending on the scopus, and this classification in terms of the extent of translation belongs to John Cunnison Catford. And in full translation, every part of the source text is replaced by the target language text material. And this is called full translation. Like every part of the source text is replaced by the target language text material. And in partial translation, some parts of the source language text are left untranslated due to different purposes. And according to, of course, the commissioners or the client's needs, the translation can be adapted. It may be free, literal, or even some imitation, yes, of the source text. So, you see, here we tried to touch upon several issues of pragmatics. Of course, this is not at all complete, because it gives a certain understanding of pragmatics, but you see, the theory of speech acts is very deep, and it comprises very many things that are interrelated, and which we haven't discussed with you. I guess due to the thing that are it is not just an important issue for us, but nonetheless, we should stress our attention on pragmatics as a whole, yes, just for us to retain the communicative effect upon the reader. And this is more important for us than to deal with their speech acts deeply, yes, and completely. So, all in all, yes, all in all, this is it. So, do you have any questions to me? Because you see, the issue is rather complicated.
Да нет пока. Вопросов нет. На практике появится.
Да, I guess so, yes. So, yes, when you have to answer the things during the exam, so you should say that text pragmatics and pragmatics in translation is a very complicated issue, and it comprises like genre, style, scopus, or aspects. Yes, of course, the theory of speech acts originated by John Austin, as I said, some details of it, of course. Then the definition of pragmatics, certain examples that are dedicated to this, and the translation event, yes, that aims from one side to give the closest possible approximation of the original text, and on the other side it is a concrete speech act, yes, and it also has certain rules, norms, and some laws, so to say, of its perception. So, if you don't have any questions, so please put down the material that I have given to you guys in the written form, just for you to have a full lecture dedicated to pragmatics this time. And yes, I guess that I would see you next week.